We're all wired for connection, but isn't it kind of strange that the people we love the most, our family, our partners, our absolute closest friends, are often the ones who can hurt us the deepest? It's this wild paradox that sits right at the heart of our relationships, and today we're going to dive into it. I mean, that quote just hits home, doesn't it? It's a feeling so many of us know all too well. So, how do we even begin to navigate this? Well, we're going to unpack a really powerful and maybe even surprising tool for finding some peace and protecting our own well being. It's called the art of distancing. All right, so let's start with the basic problem. Why is it that the very closeness we're all looking for in our relationships can so often turn into the source of our biggest fights? Look, we need other people to learn, to see ourselves, to grow. It's just how we're built. And yet, one thoughtless word, one dismissed feeling from someone we love, man, it can leave a surprisingly deep wound. It creates this constant tug of war inside our heads. How do we stay connected, but also, protect ourselves? To really see how this plays out, let's zoom in on a personal story that just perfectly captures this struggle. This is where we see what happens when love, all by itself, just isn't enough to make it work. So, the author of our source material here describes this really painful dynamic inside their own family. Their feelings were just constantly ignored, and their opinions were brushed aside simply because of their age. The very people who were supposed to be their safe harbor were, ironically, the ones causing the most pain. And this whole experience led to this huge aha moment. Just because someone loves you, it doesn't automatically mean they understand you. And realizing that love and understanding are two totally different things, wow, that's often the very first step. Mistaking one for the other is where so much of the hurt really begins. So, what happens when a relationship has plenty of love, but it's missing that crucial ingredient of understanding? Well, that's what we call an unbalanced relationship. Let's take a look at the dynamics that make these connections so incredibly draining. And this definition really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? An unbalanced relationship is one where you're constantly trying to understand the other person, but that effort just isn't coming back your way. It leads to this feeling of one-sided sacrifice, where you just kind of go quiet inside, feeling lonely even when you're literally sitting next to them. And this imbalance is usually held in place by some kind of power dynamic. You know the vibe. Someone might use their age, I'm older, I know better, or their status to just shut down your perspective without ever really hearing it. That's what breaks the balance and makes the whole thing so exhausting. And the author uses such a powerful metaphor for this. A relationship without understanding is like smoking next to dynamite. It's just inherently unstable. You're constantly on edge, right? Never knowing what careless word is going to set the whole thing off. Okay, so when you're faced with that kind of instability, what are you supposed to do? This is where we get to the core solution, the wisdom of distance. And it means we have to completely rethink what distancing actually means. It's not an attack, it's a tool for survival. And the most important part here is that this is a conscious choice. This isn't about giving someone the silent treatment or ghosting them. It's about you intentionally creating just enough emotional space to protect your own peace of mind. Now, this right here is the most important distinction we can make. We tend to think of distance as a wall, something that isolates you, something that ends a connection. But that's not what this is. I want you to think of it instead as a buffer zone. A buffer zone is an act of protection. It doesn't end the relationship, it actually creates the space needed to sustain it. When you create that little buffer, something amazing happens. You can start to see the other person more objectively, without your own hurt feelings clouding everything up. It gives the relationship just enough room to breathe, which allows that mutual respect to survive even when deep understanding isn't really there. Okay, so let's get practical. How do we actually do this? It all comes down to finding your own personal balance, figuring out how to understand other people without totally losing yourself in the process. And it really boils down to asking yourself two fundamental questions. First, how much of myself am I willing to give in this relationship? And second, and this is just as important, where do I need to draw the line to protect myself? Your honest answers to those questions are what define the boundaries of a healthy connection. And this all leads to a huge shift in how we even think about relationships. We're so often taught to chase closeness, to be inseparable. But what if the real goal isn't just physical proximity? What if it's the depth of mutual understanding and respect? I mean, that changes everything. And I just love the way the author wraps this up. It's not about pushing people away. It's about finding that sweet spot, that perfect distance where both people can actually feel comfortable. They call it an aesthetic, almost like a form of art, finding that elegant, sustainable balance in a relationship. So, this is the question I really want to leave you with. Take a look at your own relationships. Where is that line for you? Where might you need to create a little buffer zone? Not to end a connection, but to protect yourself and maybe, just maybe, even preserve it for the long run. Finding that answer, well, that's the true art of distancing.